Well, because of that high bank right there, that's why you got the deer trail down below that in that bottom. And then you're gonna come in here to this gap right here, and you see the hardwood trees right here in this little gap. If you follow that little holler back up to the top, it gets real trashy right there at the top. Early season, you got a big white oak right there, you got some red oaks in there, and you got a red oak over there that was dropping real heavy early season. This is a really good draw right here, early season, because when you get behind that, on the very top head of that holler, and it wraps around the top up there, you can see, and it's really thick. And those deer, there's deer beds right there on the edge of that early season, because nobody drives up and down through there, and when you get down there, it's real thick, and they go around that settling pond, and you know that big deer trail that crosses there on the other side, where it's nasty thick, that's the main bed area right there. So all they got to do is jump across that little log road around that settling pond, and they're right here in this little hollow and feeding on these acorns. And at the top right there, you follow that ridge out, you got them persimmon trees up there early season. If they're dropping persimmons, that's where them all the buck sign seems to be, right there around them persimmons, because that's in the edge of those pines where it gets thick. So, and then you got on the other side here, it ain't far. I mean, they got to cross the road right here to get it. You see that big old white oak tree right there? That big old white oak right there.
Oh, I see.
When it drops, it's right on the edge of that pine thicket. And so we're on the back side of that pine thicket from here, and that's a major bed area right there. But it is real thick in there, and they will utilize this little draw, because there's no acorns anywhere else. The only acorns is over here on this side, close to these two bed areas.
People go to the stand back here and go back this way.
Well, if you think about it, this is a bed area on this side, major bed area, and then when you go around the other side, the head of that draw there, it leads to that other bed area. So you're in between two bed areas, and that's why you see these deer trails crossing right through here so heavy, especially early season. That's a beat down little trail right there dropping off.
On the edge of these pines.
Well, you got some historical rubs right there. You got another historical rub right there, and you got this little clump of small pines right here. This makes a little finger that jots out into this little pine bottom. Right over there's a ditch. That's where they cross the creek pretty regular. They come up off that hill right there. They drop down in that swag, because these woods are just a little bit more open. They use that swag to their advantage. And this is my tree I get in. I climb up. I got that little cedar, so I got all that cover around me. So I'm hid up in there real good, even though it's a pine tree. I get right above that. And the bucks, they gonna stay in that high grass coming out of that bed area. They gonna stay in that stuff right there to the last second. And you see that little finger, how that finger of pines works out through there? And then it gets open. Well, because it's open, they're not gonna go up yonder. It's too flat and open. They're not gonna go back this way. That whole hillside's too open. But you got that little swag right there where they can get in between. They can tuck in between these two hills and go up to that bed area real quick. Sneak through here. That makes sense to you? And if you look, you know, that tree leaned over there. He had rubbed on that tree there. Some of these trees had fresh rubs on them, and they scrape up here somewhere. I don't remember where. Yeah, but that little bit of brush right there that jaunts out in here, any buck with any character at all,
it's a little bit open on the other side of it,
is gonna walk through that mess right there, and that gives me 15-20 yard shot, 20-30 to the other edge at the most. So that's a good spot. See, that's a fairly little bit fresher rub, but it ain't a big rub. Nothing that gets me excited.
I'm trying to look off in there.
Now, right up here, we can look for some doe bedding right here on this hump. Remember them circles I was telling you about?
Yeah.
Can't really.
There's a bunch of them down there.
I don't know if you can even see that on camera or not. That's where they eating on mushrooms.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them in that trail when you come up. You can see them just look like trap doors.
Well, there's areas in here where these deer feed all over these mushrooms. I wonder what them crows is after.
Us or something else.
Well, they probably fussing at us. But there's a tree up there, that pine. That's a bigger rub, but see, it's an old rub from early season. Can you see it from here?
Yeah, I can see it.
See, they was a man-sized buck
Right there's the old one.
in here, working this area pretty hard. And that ditch, you know, once you get out there in that open woods, a lot of that's at nighttime. But he gonna run that ditch. That ditch runs up there just about 100 yards, and then these woods get real wide open. So that buck, he don't go that way. He bears to the left. Why does he bear to the left? If you go up there, that's where them persimmon trees are on top of that hill, and it's thick over there. There's two ridges over there. Early season, he beds on one of those knobs. Me and Robert come down here, looked before season ever started, and we jumped him.
To catch him right here, though.
Well, we jumped him off that ridge early season. Went over there and looked at his bed.
Here, right? East.
Well,
Which way's east? Right yonder?
you got a bed on the left side of these pines and the right side of these pines. I got two beds right here.
Which on top of the hill right here?
And you got some more pines over there. The bedding in this open stuff, it's pretty open.
Right there, big.
Clear cut out in there. If it's real cold weather,
You'd have sun
they
all
might
day.
they might bed out there
You'd have sun all
and bask in the sun. But majority of the time, you'll probably find these beds close to these pine tops, where they tuck up in there underneath it. Because this is Alabama, it don't ever get that cold here.
I see a little place going
You
off
see all
there.
these trails. You got a trail coming in from this side, got a trail here. All these lead to this one little patch of pines. That's why you got them beds right there by the pines. All these little trails lead to it. And right here where these beds are, how far is this from my tree stand?
30 yards,
Well, I'm a little further than 30 at the most.
40.
Yeah, so I get tight on it. You got to get tight on these deer.
I know what. Still flies.
Still got a little bit of meat on those bones. You can see all this matted out area right here. Something died right here.
What kind of hair is that? That's deer hair, ain't it?
You can kind of see the trails
Yeah,
going through all this stuff.
that's wheel travel.
And that corner of pines over there, that's where my stand location is, and all these trails lead to that finger, because those finger of pines come out into this clear cut. And these bucks, they know where they know that them does bed over there in that clump of pines. And odds are, when you get up on that hilltop there, they might be a bed or two there next.
Trail going through here. That's all they have.
And then over on that hump, probably a major bed area out in this clear cut. You just follow this main trail right here, and it's gonna take you right straight over to that other bed area.
Yeah.
Just keep walking it. We're gonna walk it out. Yeah. There ain't no sense in walking in the woods.
Anything going up in that corner right there.
Maybe, but I think they're gonna be on this hump in front of us. Majority of them. They'll bed in that wood line close. But these deer get a lot of hunting pressure on them. They're gonna be out in this stuff. You know where you're at now.
Right over there.
Yeah. That's the road bed right there. They made a road right there so they could walk up there to that green field.
I walked up here about where we are one day.
This trail may lead to that green field.
I bet it does.
If it does, that means I'll show you where the does are bedding on the other side of it. Let's walk up there. Yeah, I did all that talking. I didn't say any of that on film, but
I ain't no big deal.
well, I'm making a video. I should probably talk on camera. But what I was saying is if they're sitting on this field and they're looking at that feeder, they want the wind in their face. That's the wrong wind. They got the tree stand set up in the wrong spot.
Yeah.
Even though the wind's in your favor right here, in this immediate area, in all honesty, it's a bad setup because of the way the woods we just walked, the deer downwind of the hunter. And they're scent checking this field. And that's why they probably ain't been a deer killed on this field. It's because of the way they got the stand set up. Unless the deer come from the other side, which is not likely because the deer bed behind us. And
where's the stand right over there?
Well, there's a shooting house over there, another green field.
Yeah. So what's the chance of something coming from that one?
Yeah, there's human pressure over there too. So I'll show you where these deer bed on this side. Come on. Yeah, another reason that stand is there is because you see all this deer activity in here. This is a big scrape area right here. Got deer droppings all in it. You can see overhanging limbs. It's a pretty major scrape, but if you look at the woods right through here, in all honesty, you can see close to 100 yards in some areas all the way around here. And it's wide open timber. So all this stuff, you got rubs over there. This will be ate up with rut sign on this flat top ridge right here. And you'll see deer droppings where they browse and all that little bit of honeysuckle, greenbrier stuff. It's too open for daytime activity. Way too open. But they see this deer sign here and they want to hunt it. They think this big old buck's gonna come in here in wide open timber in broad daylight and work his scrape, and they're gonna get a shot at it. Never gonna happen. I could be wrong, but I would never hunt this. It's just not what I hunt. Now if you walk off the edge of this over here, these woods is wide open too. It is wide open. So all the thick woods is where we came from, right? Any deer entering this area is going to come from that direction. And we ain't went to the other side yet. Now they're going to come from the other side.
You think it'd circle around that cut? Go down.
Well, I'll show you. It gets thick over here and you'll find some deer beds, especially early season.
That's beat out.
I chased some does down there. I went in there and run them out of their bed area, and they run down that hill. And if you cross that wide open timber down there, right in the very, very bottom, there's a thick edge, and them does, they stayed in that thick edge all the way down through. They never got out in this wide open stuff even though they were just does and being chased by some crazy redneck. They knew where they could and couldn't go. Look at this rub over here. You see this? See, there's a good buck in here. Did you see this rub?
Yeah.
Signpost rub. So he didn't really tear that tree up, shine it down to knock all the bark off of it, but you can see he rubbed on that tree there. 99.9999% chance it was done at night. See, once you get to this side, once you get to this hump, you see how much thicker the woods are? And see the elevation change?
Yeah, turn and go down.
Yeah, the deer will use that terrain elevation change to their advantage. And it's thicker That's a lot thicker over here. You know, when you look at these woods right here and how thick they are compared to those woods over there, it's night and day different. Over there you can see 100 yards. Once you get to that hump over there, you can see 300 yards through there, through them pines. Them deer ain't gonna walk out there in broad daylight. They gonna hug this side. They gonna use this terrain feature, and see it gets real steep.
Is that pad right over there?
Well, that's that gorge.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, and them deer, I jumped them deer right there on the end of this elevation change where it drops off, because deer like to say they'll bed on them elevation breaks like that. And when they ran, they jumped off that hillside and they stayed in that thick stuff, and they ran all the way back to that gas line over there next to the gorge. As soon as you get in this thicker stuff, you start seeing fresher buck sign. I mean, you ain't got to go far in here. But see these ditches and drainages, and that's what these deer, they'll use this stuff to their advantage for a skate route. Early season, all this grass was green, and that's really all it takes sometimes.
Right there.
Yeah, well, they browse all this stuff down. But they're real close to that thick edge. They're right on this hump. They bed in this high grass here when it's green, early season. Right there it drops off real steep. Right in front of them it drops off real steep. And then over there you got that elevation break that you got to climb up to get to here. And it's far enough away from them deer. When you top that hill, they're gonna spot you. And they expect you to come from that direction, because that's where all the human activity is. Cornfield, green field, all that stuff. So, makes sense why they would lay here.
Yeah.
They can keep up with what's going on. Right straight down there in front of us is what I'm really, really interested in.
Yeah, right.
We'll just follow the path that those deer took when I jumped them.
Was it right down
And
there
we're
again?
gonna hook a right and circle all the way back around and scout this out real good. I don't see any deer hair in it, but you could tell this deer laid here on this hump.
I ain't gonna do this. Something laying right
But a buck, this is like a place where a buck would lay.
right here.
If I were a buck deer, I'd lay in a place like this right here.
You see everything.
If you look, he may not be laying here because there's no
See them pine cones there?
brush behind
See
him.
the three laying behind your feet?
Yeah.
They chewed up.
If you were to take these,
That's the forest.
I bet if you were to take, that's a bed right there, you could tell. I just can't see, I don't see no deer hair in it. It's an old bed. I bet if you piled some brush up right here and made a treetop right here, a good buck would lay here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they want something to their back. This right here is not very much.
Okay.
But if you look, when a buck leaves a spot like this, you say, well, where would he run? Right here. He would, if you look at the ground, right there, he will drop right off that, right straight down there. That's the trail. That's his escape route. And he will drop right off in that gorge in a heartbeat. 4 or 5 bounces and he's out of your sight. And once he goes down through there, you'll never, you can't run over here fast enough
That's what I'm saying. If you spooked
to
him
get
from
a
the top of
shot.
the hill,
Oh
he'd be
yeah.
gone.
He can see so far behind him, there's no way you're going to sneak up on him. And if he's got the wind to his back like they do 99.9% of the time, he could run that way and hit that ditch, but odds are that right there is his escape route, straight off this hill. You can see the trail.
1, 2, 3, and go.
Yeah, 3 bounds and he's out of here. There's another bed right there.
Probably all.
Just back up, and there's just a little bit more. That could be a better. See all the brush behind him? All that nasty brush, tangled mess.
Spot.
And he's laying right here with all that to his back. And this bed here is 20 yards from that bed. And I'll bet you anything that hump over yonder, close to that edge, I'll bet you anything there's a bed on it too. And this,
the next one over
this deer here, when he leaves here, he's going to that same gorge right there, or he's going right, look at this trail, you barely can see it. He's going right off that high bank there. He can go left or right, and early season, all this will be green. Once he tucks in here, you're not going to see that joker until you just nearly on top of him. He got that high bank to his back, all this brush. I'm going to waypoint this because this is decent. This is a better
Where would you come in at?
buck bed area. I'd have to come in from the bottom side because the wind's going to be to his back. And you'd have to circle around somehow, get off to one side or the other of him. You know, you got that gas line behind us. You could come in on that bank. If he's bedding on that high hump, that'd be perfect. If he's bedding on this low hump, you'd be 100 yards from him. You got the gas line on that side, you can walk all the way down and come up that hill. So there's two access points.
If the wind was right over here,
Well,
they'd cut them off from going. They'd have to run up this hill then. Of course, bow hunting, I mean, you know, it'd be,
I would think when he gets up from his bed,
they naturally go that way anyway, I believe.
he's either gonna, if he's bedding high behind us, he's gonna go that direction. If he's bedding on this bottom hump, I would think he'd go that way.
Look at all those hardwoods down there. You can stay, you know, there's water down there, there's everything.
Or he'll just drop right there in this
I'd drop right off in there.
gorge. If there's acorns early season, he'll just feed right here. He won't have to go. Right there's that giant white oak.
You wouldn't have to go anywhere. Come right
If
back
that
around.
giant white oak's dropping acorns,
That's perfect. Oh, they stay right in here. That's what I was talking about.
I don't know.
You wouldn't have to go anywhere.
It's gonna be every time you find a really good buck bed area, it's always hard to get to. That's why they bed here. It'd be very difficult to get here without him knowing it. You got to get here without him knowing it. That's the trick.
Oh, well, that'd be. I don't even know if you could come in from that way. You may have to come in like you said. I don't know. You couldn't be quiet.
You come in from the left or the right because that's the only two access areas. Unless you're a man and you want to drop off in that gorge and sneak up the bottom and expect him coming that way. Because late in the evenings, you got to be really quiet. You can get within 100 yards of this deer pretty easy, I think. Late in the evenings, that wind's going to drop down into this gorge. Your thermal's going to drop down into it. So if he is feeding, early season, if he's feeding on these acorns here, you might at least see him. I don't know if you kill him or not, because I think if that white oak's dropping, that's the place he's going to go. And you're not going to sneak up to that white oak.
Their usual out is go around and go downwards. It's too steep. It's pretty steep right there. The wind right over there.
Well, them deer don't care about steep.
They could right here.
That's why them bucks bed here, because you can't get to them.
But if you didn't spook him, you'd have to just about come in over here somewhere.
Left or right side. One of the two you'd have to come in to get him. That's the closest you're going to be able to get to this buck. You might be able to call this deer to you. Anyway, every one of these are beds right here in this brush top. There's like one bed there, one bed there, one bed here. I'll tell you something else about buck beds too, David. You might not know, but buck beds will take a dump in their bed.
This has got a big one in it.
Well, there's some big deer droppings over here in this bed. You say you got deer hair over there in that bed? I'll look at it. You see this trail right here is going right straight to where you're at through all this honeysuckle greenbrier. Ow! Them some virgin briars right there.
They're too old. They're pretty wet. Big pile right there, and now over here.
Yeah,
Big old pile right
that's
there.
probably some doe. That's doe droppings right there, little old
Yeah.
fawn.
That right there?
Yeah, that's a little
Okay.
fawn. Come here and I'll show you what big droppings look like. This little hump looks like it could have bedding on it, but I don't think they'll bed here because of how confined it is. I could see a buck coming down here to this point, maybe standing here, possibly scent checking late in the evening or listening for deer in that bottom. I don't see a buck deer bedding here unless he's way out here on the edge. It's just too, there's no escape route here. It's just not the right setup for a buck bed. We'll look and see anyway. You see, they just not hardly gonna bed here.
No.
It ain't got the right ingredients like that other spot.
It's too open in here.
Well, he can't go that way. He's blocked.
Yeah.
I mean,
You really
he really and truly can't go that way. You got that bluff, that cliff, that windrow, everything's piled up. That's inaccessible that way. He's only got one way he can run. So that next ridge over on the end of it, that's where there'll be a buck bed if there's anywhere at all. And see this gap right here? I'm gonna show you something else
pretty
too.
down there. Cleaned out.
You don't see any deer trails down this far
No, there's one right over there.
because there's that big steep gap.
Yeah,
You said deer are lazy.
Yeah, the road.
They gonna go around this gap up
Up
there.
there where that stretch of tree is, the road.
Yeah, let's go up there. That's the main trail. That's where they're gonna walk around this.